Hi, welcome to my channel. Glad you could join me today. I have been thinking about doing this video for some time and I just thought, why not? I'll do it just because I want to do it. And so today's video is going to be the Booktube Newbie tag. And I actually modified it a little bit. I did not go with the original questions. I took some questions from another booktuber that I kind of liked a little bit more. Her name is Turning Pages with Dom, and I just like some of the ones that she had better, and so I just kind of picked some from the original Booktube Newbie tag and from hers, and so that's what I'm going to be using today. So let's go ahead and get started. Question number 1 is, why did you start this channel? So originally when I started my channel, I thought it was going to be a thrifting channel because I also enjoy thrifting. And then I just started thinking that is going to cost you way too much money to be thrifting all the time. I do not thrift all the time. I thrift every once in a while, and I just thought it would just totally burn a hole through my pocket just trying to keep up with the content. And so while I was on maternity leave last year and I was doing thrifting videos and all that stuff, I actually came across a booktuber. I think Sarah Caroli, I believe is how you pronounce her name. And I just went down a rabbit hole from there. I was like, oh my goodness, there are people who actually film themselves reading videos and talking about books that they read. Like, this is like my whole entire life. Reading books and then wanting to talk about them with someone. And so I found her, and then I actually happened upon Shaughnessy Schroeder and really fell in love with her videos. And she likes to read a lot of romance books, like I kind of do as well. And I fell down a rabbit hole and I was like, you know what? I think I could do this. I could definitely start a booktube channel. And so I did. And then I went back to work and I just completely stopped filming, and then I picked it back up like a month ago. So happy you joined me for this video. Okay, question number 2. Why do you love reading? Okay, so I am not going to go with the generic answer of it's an escape, it takes me to new places. I am actually going to go with because I love words. And I love stories. I am an elementary school teacher. And so a lot of what I do right now is teach children how to read stories, how to retell stories. I read a lot of children's books, if you can imagine, read a lot of children's books. And I just I just love stories. I love different stories. I love reading the way authors weave stories, which is why I am also on this journey to write my own book. So if you caught any of my other videos, this is actually a booktube/authortube channel actually, and I am in the process of writing my first novel. I'm super excited about it. So if you haven't watched those videos, you should check those out as well. But I love a good story. I love words. I don't know if that makes sense, really, but I do. I love words, and I love a good story. I think it's really cool to see how all of these different authors come up with these stories in their minds and then bring them to life on paper and then get you like so enthralled and involved in them. And like, that's one of the main things that I enjoy about reading, honestly. So yeah, that's my answer. Question number 3 is, when did you start reading? Okay. So reading has been an interesting journey for me. So I started reading when I was 4, and of course I was like super excited about that, right? You're reading really young, and I think my first book I read was Hop on Pop, and I would definitely say most of that was memorization. But then after that, once I got those sight words and all that stuff, high frequency words down, I basically just took off from there. And then reading became more like a chore, because like you had to do it for school and do it in school, and then I didn't enjoy it as much. And then when I turned about 12 years old, I will say this was a turning point for me. I turned about 12 years old, and my mom and dad would make us go to the library in the summertime, and we had to do 3 book reports every summer just to keep our minds sharp. And my mom would take us to the bookstore. My sister and I, or not the bookstore, the library, and my sister and I would hang out at the library, and we would get books. Now, we were able to get like 1 book that we really enjoyed, and then we would have to pick up 2 basically nonfiction books. And then my parents really pushed reading books about African Americans or books written by African Americans. And so I really gravitated towards the young adult novels. And then when I got in high school, I started reading graphic novels, and I really fell in love with those. And then the graphic novel that I really fell in love with, Marmalade Boy, they kind of stopped printing. At least I think they stopped printing it. I haven't been able to find it. And so when I find a copy of it in the wild, I buy it. I don't even have the complete set yet. I keep going to bookstores and used bookstores trying to find the other books that I need. But I started picking up reading probably more so in high school. Then I found Sarah Dessen. She's a young adult author. She hasn't written in a really long time, but when I checked on her Instagram a couple months ago, I think she turned in a manuscript, and I'm super excited. I hope that the manuscript she turned in gets turned into a book and she releases something new, because I love everything she reads. But Sarah Dessen really was a turning point for me, and I got really into reading. And she's like young adult, like romance, kind of. And I really got into reading with her. And then I basically read all of her books. And then I kind of didn't gravitate towards reading anything else. So it was basically graphic novels and Sarah Dessen for me. And then I would just read every new book that she put out. But as an adult, I really picked up reading after my kids. And I started listening to audiobooks when I was driving back and forth on my long commute. I had an hour commute in the morning, so 30 minutes to take the kids to the babysitter, 30 minutes back to work, and then in the afternoons. And I really got into reading books then, and it just has not stopped. And then I discovered Goodreads, and then I could set goals, because I'm a goal-oriented person. Like, I need a goal. And so I would set, like, I'm going to read 45 books this year. And so I kind of started doing that, and then it just picked up from there. This year, my goal is to read like 85 books. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little behind on that because I've been writing my own book. And so reading has kind of gone to the back burner. I'm not reading like 7-8 books a month like I used to. I'm reading more like 3 or 4. But I really started, like, my turning point for reading to me, I think, was when I was 12. And I just discovered that there was more books than just like the nonfiction books my parents wanted us to read, when I really discovered that, like, oh my gosh, there's like so much more. And like, I really loved romance. And so I just started reading romance books then. And then I just fell in love with different authors. I would just read their stuff. And then when I got older, I realized, like, oh, you don't have to just stick with them, because then Sarah Dessen stopped writing for a little bit. And so I had to find somebody else. And I will go over that person that I found later. And that just kind of led me down a rabbit hole. But that's coming up in a couple questions. So stay tuned. Hold on. Favorite book genres. What are my favorite book genres? So if you haven't guessed, romance. Romance is one of them. I don't know. I don't really gravitate anymore towards like really fluffy romances. I like a little depth. I like some flawed characters. I don't know. I used to read really fluffy ones, but then like the older I get, the more I like some depth with my romance. And I don't know. I've been really struggling lately with finding other romance books that I enjoy, just because I feel like when you read a lot of romance and you start craving a little more, it's hard to continue to read romance. At least it is for me. And so then the whole thing where like they like each other but communication's an issue, and then all they had to do was just talk to each other the whole entire time, and they end up breaking up and they come back together in the end. Like, I get, like, it's a recipe for a book, but I've been kind of pulling away from that, like pulling away from that kind of a romance book. So yeah, romance is one of my favorite genres. And then my other one, which is kind of like a new to me genre, but I have just been devouring a lot of these books, is fantasy. And even better when romance and fantasy can come together and they're called romantasy. I've really been enjoying a good romantasy read. Now, let me tell you this one thing. I'm not a huge fan of books about fairies. I do struggle with that. I have been struggling with that. And yeah. So if it's a good romance and a fantasy coming together and it doesn't have fairies in it, I'm your girl. All about that. I have read books with fairies in it that have been good. Like currently I'm going through the whole like Throne of Glass series, and I have been enjoying that. And you guys are probably going to hate me when I say this. I did not enjoy A Court of Thorns and Roses. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't even read the second book. Everyone kept telling me the second book gets good, and then it kind of gets good from there. I couldn't. I started it, and guys, Farah, I couldn't with her. I couldn't with her. So yes, romance and fantasy are like my two genres right now. I've really been enjoying those. Okay, genres I don't care for. And I do think when I say this, I'm going to be cutting out like a huge amount of people who could possibly watch my videos. I do not enjoy horror, thriller, or mystery. It is not for me. When I'm reading, I don't like to have anxiety. I don't like to be scared. I don't like to feel that at nighttime that I have to walk around my house looking around the corners because of the things that I just read in a book, and then like the graphic descriptions and everything, and I'm picturing it. I don't like that. I don't even watch those movies, and so that's a hard no for me. It's a real hard no for me. I'm also not a really huge fan of nonfiction. And I know I'm a teacher and we read a lot of nonfiction for informational texts because that's a standard we have in second grade. But let me tell you, I will do it all for the kids. But when I'm home and I'm trying to enjoy myself, nonfiction just is not it for me. Not at all. So you won't really catch up any nonfiction recommendations on this channel. No horror, no thriller, no mystery, because I probably won't read it. So yeah, those are a no for me. Okay, question number 6. What is a romance book recommendation that you would give? Okay. Here's my romance book recommendation. This is probably one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book. And I recommend this to people all the time, especially for me, if you're going to start with her books. And it's this one. I love book lovers. I read this book a couple years ago and fell in love with it and in love with her writing. And from there, I discovered she had other books. I started reading those. And now every time she puts a book out, I get it. I buy it. But Book Lovers is my favorite romance book. And it's kind of well loved. I have reread this book several times. I'm not currently in the middle of reading it, but I did read it and finished it, and then I put this bookmark back in it. But this was like a couple months ago where I reread this. When I'm in a reading slump, this is the book I pick up. I just immediately go to this and I start reading. I just love the story in this book so much. And if you haven't read it, it is about a girl, Nora, who loves books. And she and her sister are really close. I have a sister, and so this book kind of resonates with me. I really love it. This would be my book recommendation. I love Emily Henry's writing. I love her banter. I feel like she's the banter queen. I don't even know how she does it. It's just amazing. The banter and the dialogue and everything she has with her characters. But I do love Charlie Lastra. He is one of my book boyfriends. I love him so much. This is my romance book recommendation. All right, so question number 7. What is a book fantasy recommendation that you have? Okay, and I know people either love this book or they hate this book. But this book was a huge turning point for me with fantasy and getting me into fantasy and exploring fantasy and reading more fantasy. Because when you look at fantasy books, most of them are so thick. But I read this book about a year ago on my maternity leave, and it was a book talk recommendation. And I don't normally like to go off of those because sometimes I feel like they're a little hyped up, and then I read them and I'm just like, I don't know. But I have already reread this book 3 times since I discovered it last year. But once I got into it, I was into it. I mean, guys, for Christmas, my husband got me a sweatshirt. He even found these cute little 3D printed dragons, actually pretty big. And I wish I would have brought them into this video to show you, but maybe another time. But I feel like Fourth Wing is one of those books that, like, I guess if you're a real hardcore fantasy reader, I don't know, people really enjoyed this one that much. I had heard some reviews where people were just like, it's not really, I don't know, great fantasy. You need to try this instead. However, if you have been like me and books like this that are thick with these little teeny tiny words kind of make you apprehensive to read fantasy, I'm telling you, this one is full of action if you have not read Fourth Wing yet. I love this book so much, and I will be rereading this one and Iron Flame, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame before Onyx Storm comes out in January. But this is another book when I'm in a reading slump, I pick this up and I start reading this one. I picked this one because this was a turning point for me and really got me into the fantasy world. And I would say like my second one would probably be Powerless. If you haven't read Powerless by Lauren Roberts and then read Reckless by Lauren Roberts, I don't know, what are you doing? Okay, and so young adult book recommendation that I have, and it's going to be a Sarah Dessen book, but this book right here, The Truth About Forever, I love this book. I always reread her books every 2 years. I will go back and I will reread every single one of her book. I'm currently in a rereading Sarah Dessen book year. And so I've already read this one. And then I have I think 4 more left to read. But I love this book, The Truth About Forever. And it is about a 16-year-old named Macy Queen who loses her dad to a heart attack and then ends up having this summer, of course, that she thought was going to be a certain way and turned out to be a different way. And then we meet Wes. And then we meet Wes. Yes. And I'm just going to stop it there. But it's a good read. I love Sarah Dessen's writing style. It is amazing. It really is amazing. And I want to thank her for getting me into reading, like making me fall in love with reading. It was her who did it for me, and she is the reason why I am here today. Okay, so question number 9 is not really a question. It's just my bookshelves / book selection. Okay, and so unlike most booktubers, I do not have a library where I have all my books. They're currently sitting in a box in my basement. I go down there and I pull them out. They are sitting on this very small bookshelf that is over to the side, and I filmed a video in front of it. And then I finally broke down and bought some bookshelves to put my books on. But for me to buy a book and keep in or on my bookshelf, I have to really be in love with it. And that's why I have these books that I showed you. But my book selection is mainly romance, fantasy, and then some young adult books. There are a couple other young adult authors that I do like, and I will read their stuff. But for a book to make it on my bookshelf, I have to fall in love with you and want to read you again. So the books that I get are books that I know I'm going to reread. If I'm not going to reread it, if it doesn't have a reread factor for me, it doesn't get a home on my bookshelf. But usually with my book selection, that's where I am: romance, fantasy, and then some young adult authors. I do have a couple of self-help books that go on my that I've read that I like to come back to, like parenting books. One book that I really read that I am going to buy is The Anxious Generation. Really love that one. And so that will be coming on my bookshelves, but I don't have the library that most booktubers have. A lot of my books, let me go back. All of my books I get from the library or I listen to on audiobook. And yes, audiobooks are reading. As an elementary school teacher, I am telling you that. If you come at me and say the audiobooks isn't reading, like, we can't be friends. There are different modalities to how people need to take in information. And for some people, that is one of them. But I read audiobooks a lot. Like, I listen to them a lot, which is still reading because you are still getting information and knowledge and access to words and vocabulary. So it is reading. Do not let anyone tell you that it is not. But all my books, library, and if I love it, then I buy it and it goes on my bookshelf. Sometimes I'll thrift some books at Goodwill because they're like $1 at our Goodwill, and I'll just take a chance on it. And then if I don't like it, it can go in a free library somewhere, or I give it to a friend. We actually have a free little library in our teacher's lounge, and we just take books and put them there and then borrow books. It's actually really cool. It's really neat. So I'm glad one of the teachers came up with that idea. Okay, question 10 is what I hope to learn. I hope that I learn, one, that it's okay to come into this space and read the things that you read and love the things that you love. And you do not have to read/love things because it's big on TikTok or BookTok or Instagram, Bookstagram or Booktube, but you come into the space and you like the things, you do the things that you do because you do them. I do feel like with social media, you want the views, you want the likes, and so you are tending to do things for that. And I like to read what I read, and I like what I like. And I hope that, not that I'm not okay with that, but I do know that I can't be everything for everybody, that my community will be my community and they'll want to be here because they like my content, they like what I'm putting out. But I also hope that I learn to explore new genres. I am very comfortable with where I am with my genres that I do like, but I do hope that I explore to learn, I learn to love new genres. I will not learn to love thriller, horror, or mystery though. I can't, I can't do it. I can't do it, but maybe I might try some new nonfiction. But man, I really am looking forward to this journey with my booktube and my authortube. I'm hoping that I can reach out and meet new people and talk about books and hopefully meet some authors who are also on the same journey that I am. It is a lonely journey over here where I am right now. I have no author friends, and currently no one to talk to really who understands the process that is writing a book. I have felt a little bit like when I do talk to people about my book, I do have a couple people who are really interested, who really care, but then I do feel like there's some people who are just like, okay, cool, you're writing a book. But if you've ever written a book or you're in the process of writing a book, it is a lot. I do hope that with this channel, I make some connections. That would be really nice for me to make connections with other people who are in the same boat that I am, and maybe not even in the same boat that I am. I'm okay with that too, but I do think that I do have a lot to learn on this, and I'm going to keep plugging away at it and hopefully get this book written and keep enjoying reading books along the way. So thank you so much for joining me for this video. I know it was kind of long. I know it was really chatty. If you made it to the end of this video, you are a real friend. So thank you so much for sticking to the very end. Leave me some book recommendations in the comments. What's your favorite romance read? What's your favorite fantasy read? Because right now I am really all about exploring this, like, not really new to me genre, but like genre that I've really been getting into. So leave me some recommendations in the comments below. And if you are new to my channel and you found me through this video, you can drop a little wave emoji or say hi. I would love that as well. I will see you in the next video. Bye. We're going. Okay. I hate to do this all over again. We're not even going. Practice makes perfect.